The stock market did pretty good today. However, nothing has changed very much from yesterday. Today, we cover why the market's rising, what to know, and where the action is at right now. The government shutdown is also now forecasted to last 36 days, making it the longest in history.
Friday's sell-off was nasty, and today just about the opposite happened as SPY actually gapped up and now closed up 1.5%. But that sell-off from Friday was definitely worrying, and a lot of traders are out there questioning is this just a dead cat bounce, and will we get an ultimate sell-off still coming into play? I think that time will only tell, but there was a lot of optimism that has hit the markets here as Trump is softening his China stance. Yes, as we know, he made that post yesterday on Truth Social, and this ended up helping the market pop up last night with futures, and then even today, of course, with that nice gap up this morning. But Trump said, don't worry about China. It will all be fine. He talked about Xi, said that it was just a bad moment, and said that the U.S. wants to help China, not hurt it. That's a pretty good statement, right? That's ultimately why the market popped up today. And Besant even came out today with some positive statements as well. He even said that the 100% tariff does not have to happen, and the relationship, despite this announcement last week, is good, and lines of communication have reopened, so we'll see where it goes in regards to China. I thought that was some really positive comments today from a member of the Trump admin, and with him saying those gives me a little bit of optimism here in the short term, and I think that we saw that with the SPY's price action today, with it holding up instead of falling back down to test 650 again.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great initial step, but at the same time, the reality of the situation is that these 100% tariffs that Trump imposed still have not been lifted yet. And, of course, China is still warning of retaliation. So these tariffs are set to go into effect on November 1st. Hopefully they, get clawed back. And, that is something that we will probably find out over these next few days. So it's great to see the market popping up today, but this U.S.-China trade issue isn't the only thing starting to spice things up a little bit. We also have the U.S. government shutdown now forecasted to last more than 36 days, making it the longest in history.
That is a pretty brutal thing to hear, right? The other longest government shutdown lasted 35 days, and with this one being forecasted 36 days, that's putting it, obviously 1 day above that other 35-day mark, and I'm curious if nothing gets resolved over the next couple of weeks, how high is this going to end up becoming, right? It'll be interesting for all the Kalshi traders out there, that's for sure. But whenever I talk about the government shutdown, I mean, there's a lot that goes into play with this, and things are actually starting to now hit the economy, as Treasury Secretary Besant has said today. Yes, Besant was definitely on one today, coming out with multiple different statements, but essentially on October 14th, air traffic controllers are set to miss their first paychecks. On October 15th, military members, including active service personnel, are set to miss their first paychecks, and on October 24th, federal employees will also miss their first full paychecks. But there is a slight caveat, at least with the military members. Trump did say, and he directed the Pentagon to use all available funds to ensure that troops are still paid during this situation. So I guess that that's good for the military personnel there, but if you're an air traffic controller, it doesn't sound too good.
Yeah, and it starts tomorrow too. So, like Besant is saying, it's really starting to have an effect on the real economy. And when we look at the stock market right now, it really hasn't been freaking out too much related to this government shutdown news. But at the same time, the longer this shutdown goes on, the more impactful it will be. So, Tom, as we look at the market right now, we're certainly at a critical spot. It's great to see that we made up a lot of the losses from Friday, but at the same time, we do have some heavy resistance overhead. And today, while it held up strong, it wasn't like a giant green day. What are you seeing for key levels for tomorrow and the rest of the week?
That's ultimately the really strange part about today, is that most of the action came in pre-market as the market gapped up, and ultimately a lot of it came last night with S&P 500 futures. We can see right here, if we go to the S&P 500 futures, last night whenever they opened is where we started to get that real big gap up and where the market really started moving. But whenever I'm watching the SPY for tomorrow, there was a clear peak today at 665. I think that that has to be watched for tomorrow very closely. If we're able to see a good rip up and past that 665 resistance, then I would say that we could maybe try to look at SPY more to the upside tomorrow. I'm not going to say that I'm going to be looking for an all-time high retest right away again, but I will be watching for some big resistances like 668 and 670, some of the first couple areas coming up. I am a bit worried though, Mike, that as the market starts to rise or tries to consolidate over the next few days, that we start to see a China response, and then maybe we start to dip back down a little bit. We still haven't heard too much from China, and if we do, we could see the SPY fall. For tomorrow, I really like 658, the low from pre-market. If we start to break under that, I will be watching for this lower range from Friday to come back into play around 646 to 648, where we ultimately started bouncing in after hours.
Yeah, like if I had to pick two of the most important levels for SPY right now, it would definitely be 658 and 646. These are like the two main floors right now. Like you pointed out, 658 was the support level for today. If that gives out, that definitely would be a rough sign. And, 646 was the support from Friday. So, breaks of those levels certainly would be concerning. But so far, there's definitely some good room between them. So it's not an immediate concern. But I will say, like we pointed out yesterday, when we look back at, historical situations like we're in now, we can see that in the past, whenever the S&P 500 had a big red day, like we saw on Friday, a 2.5% or more red day, while making an all-time high the previous day, this, historically speaking, is not a good signal in the short term. 1 to 2 weeks later has historically been red most of the time, and the average returns can be pretty rough in some of these instances. So it's not the end of the world, but it certainly is something to pay attention to.
That 2 week later category is pretty crazy. We either see the market either pop up 2% or higher, or we pretty much see it drop 3% or more. It's pretty insane whenever you start looking at all those individual readings. Of course, there's a few smaller readings mixed in there, but for the most part, seeing a lot of those either gains of 4% or drops of 3% or more are definitely a bit concerning. So I'll keep that in the back of my mind. But I will say, while everybody's really freaked out about the market right now, I will say we just entered year 4 of the bull market. And as we can see, year 4 of bull markets generally go pretty dang good, with the market going green 85.7% of the time. And I think even better, the average and median percent returns being 14.6 and 13.7% is insane.
Yeah, these stats definitely are pretty beautiful. And the past 4 year 4s saw stocks up double digits. So it's definitely hard to complain there. So that's definitely nice to see. But Tom, another thing that has really been sticking out in this market is just the sheer resilience that we are seeing with gold, silver, and other precious metals. My lord, this is truly crazy.
It really is, and GLD got it done once again today, closing up 2.4%. What a rip there. Even if we go look at silver, had a nice green day too, closing up over 4% as its volatility continues to pick up. But what's pretty crazy is this whole situation with China and the tariff situation has actually helped gold quite a bit. It's pretty crazy. Gold was rising pretty much as Trump announced the 100% tariffs. It was even rising as Trump eased his stance, and now today, climbed up to new record highs. So, hey, we'll take it. Looks good for the gold and the metals market in general here. And Mike, whenever we talk about metals, I know that lately people have been mentioning rare earths quite a bit, as that was one of the real reasons why Donald Trump started hitting against China in the short term here. And I know a lot of rare earth companies have been starting to move a lot, with some of the most popular ones today being MP Materials and then USAR. Now, MP Materials was up 21%, but USAR, which is USA Rare Earth Incorporated, closed up 18%. Not as popular of a name, but these stocks are going insane, Mike. We are seeing some pops that are just mind-blowing in some cases, like CRML up over 55%, and then even more in after hours here.
Yeah, so basically with all of this U.S.-China trade tension talk, of course, the main talking point is, the rare earth industry. And basically any stock in this industry is just booming right now. Even in after hours, they are still going. When you have a stock like CRML up 55% on the day, it's hard to, say, oh, look at this, now's a great time to buy, because it already moved up so much. But at the same time, we have seen stocks in other situations go parabolic for multiple like weeks and months at a time. So like this area of the market is very hot. There's no telling exactly when these stocks will turn over, but they have like all of the momentum and attention you can ask for right now, and they're certainly in play. You know, if you're someone who's into like short-term trading and you're willing to like adapt quickly, these might be stocks that you might want to keep on your radar for tomorrow and the rest of the week, especially considering this US-China trade situation is still developing and there's a lot of uncertainty, and that can be good for like big asymmetric moves in the short term.
Yeah, it's pretty insane how many stocks are actually moving from this news as well. You know, I mean, even some companies that you wouldn't think of, like UUUU, are starting to move up 16% today. Even like other stocks like Oklo up 16%. Just a lot of movement out there across just, I would say, this broad spectrum of stocks and companies that deal with, you know, rare earths or things just in that type of sector or range. But whenever I look, Mike, MP Materials is really close to $100. So be a little careful of that psychological resistance. I know that this is one of the more popular stocks, but tomorrow we do actually have an event that is going to be pretty big, I would say, especially given all of the US-China tensions lately, and that is a Jerome Powell speech. And it's not just going to be like opening remarks or something weird like that. He's going to be giving an economic outlook and monetary policy report at the National Association for Business Economics annual meeting in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So be ready. This will be happening at 12:20 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So mark it down in the middle of the day. You never know when Jerome Powell speaks. He always has a chance to move the market.
Definitely. So that's exciting. And then also looking at the earnings lineup for tomorrow, we can see that we have the big banks kicking us off: BlackRock, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo. So that's very nice. They will all report before the market opens tomorrow. So let's keep our eyes open for that. But besides that, Tom, I think we're all clear for the fun stuff, which are some setups and predictions. And a stock that is on my radar is SQQQ, and it is to the upside. So SQQQ is an inverse ETF for the NASDAQ. Basically, if we do see some, major profit taking and selling come back into play, this can make for some great asymmetric opportunity. If we zoom out on this chart, let's say to a daily or so, we could see that back in the, you could say March and April, when we saw that Liberation Day pullback, SQQQ went from like $26 a share all the way up to like $57 a share, which was great. Of course, that was like a pretty big pullback. And I'm not saying we have to see anything of that magnitude again, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did see a pop-up in the short term with SQQQ. The only thing is that this type of setup is not something that you just want to blindly jump into, especially as investors are perceiving the market in a more bullish way, despite no material changes. So for that reason, SQQQ is on my bullish radar, but I want to see it actively start putting more pressure on its recent highs again. I think it would be great if this stock can get back above that $15.60 area. And if you wanted to play it safer, there's nothing wrong with waiting for more confirmation, maybe closer to that $16 area. Either way, if this stock does start putting more active pressure on its recent, higher range, we can say, then I like it for an upside play, and it'll definitely be close on my watch list.
Yeah, and if we start to see the overall market pull back quite a bit this week, or if China comes out with some more developments or something crazy like that, SQQQ will definitely be in play. I will be watching it all week long just in case of a possible pullback there. But with my first play, I'm looking at AVGO for possible upside continuation play. Yes, Broadcom or Avgo is one of the newer companies to have a deal with OpenAI. Yes, OpenAI and Broadcom are actually working together here, and there's a lot that goes into this overall deal. But whenever I look at this, they've been working and collaborating for 18 months on a new line of co-designed chips optimized for Broadcom's Ethernet stack, they're saying here. Obviously, things get pretty in-depth whenever you start talking about chips, but as we go through, there's been a lot of companies making deals lately with OpenAI, NVIDIA and AMD being a couple of the bigger names recently. But whenever we look at Broadcom or AVGO, it closed up 10% on, I would say, a pretty flat day overall. And whenever I look at the price action, I like how it has clear resistance at 360 intraday. It pretty much rejected there 3 different times today, or just under that point. So if we're able to re-rip above 360, I will be watching for a continuation with this one. I like the way on the daily chart that Broadcom is starting to come back up off of their recent dip. I love the way that they almost filled the gap, and just that support bounce and double bottom looks pretty enticing down there.
Yeah, and Broadcom is definitely an in-play stock right now. Of course, that recent news plus today's momentum definitely makes it a good one to keep on watch for tomorrow. So that's nice. Another stock that is still on my radar is Palantir, and it's to the downside. I know this stock is a beast, and I love it in a longer-term sense, but in a shorter-term sense, I definitely am a little bit skeptical. Basically, with all of the bullishness today, Palantir still only closed up by around 1%, which isn't bad, but it's not that great. And its price action was much weaker than the S&P 500s. I'm really looking at this one for a potential breakdown, ideally past that $170 support area. I know we're sitting around like 177 right now, so there is like a good gap between that level. We don't have to wait for a 170 break to look at short opportunities for this one, but in a broader term sense, Palantir is very aggressively valued. It has heavy resistance overhead at this 190 area, and I think with the increasing amount of profit taking and fear that we are seeing come into the market right now, I think it makes for a good risk reward playing this one to the downside. But somewhat similar to the SQQQ play I mentioned, we really need to see some sort of confirmation with this setup. It's not a type of situation where you just want to blindly jump into, because the market goes up a lot more than it falls, and that is something that has to be protected against when playing bearish overall setups.
I really like this play myself. I love the way that Palantir has rejected multiple times at this resistance around 186.50 to like 187.50. And if we even go to like a daily chart, it's rejected there multiple times recently, even back at the beginning of August. So I will be watching it very closely for a possible downtrend. I really like that support that you mentioned around 170. But with my next stock, I'm looking at NVIDIA. Now with NVIDIA, I'm actually looking at this one in both directions, and I will explain here. So NVIDIA, I like the way that it's set up today, and I actually like the resistance overhead around 190. This is a huge level, and we can see that it rejected there multiple times, once or a couple times in pre-market today, once after the market opened. And if we go to the Bookmap, we can see that there is a massive sell wall there of 260,000 shares at that 190 point, even within like a few cents of 190. There's even more stacks there. But nonetheless, that is a big sell wall. And if we're not able to break through that and NVIDIA starts to fall down, I will watch it to the downside, but I want to see good confirmation below that low from last Friday of 180. I know that there's a big gap between where we are now and that low, but if we do start to drop, I would like to see that ultimately break. Of course, you could try to trade it between here, but I feel like there could be some ultimate chop. I think the main move will come if we break above 190. I would like to see some optimism and for NVIDIA to ultimately recover back up past this point. I'm not saying it's going to push the all-time high right away, but we're really not that far off considering how much the market recovered back up today.
Definitely. All right, sounds good. Well, with that being said, Tom, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Rigetti, ticker symbol RGTI, to the upside.
Look at the way they're even running in after hours today. That is insane, closing up 25%. If they can break out above $57, their high of after hours here, then watch them up. If they break that in pre-market or in after hours tonight, watch $60 even.
With the next one, we have B2 Gold, ticker symbol BTG, also to the upside.
This is one of the more fun gold stocks that I know out there. Closed up 4.5%. If it ends up breaking out above 533, then watch it up as well.
And then with the last one, we have Wynn, ticker symbol WYNN, but to the downside.
A lot of the casino stocks closed down by quite a bit today. If Wynn falls under 112 tomorrow, then watch it down once again.
All right, so we have these 3 stocks on the radar for potential continuations tomorrow if and only if they break through the levels listed. These stocks are volatile, so you have to protect yourself. Whether you're looking at one of these 3 stocks or anything else, prioritize making smart, long-term oriented trading decisions. If you need help with this, you can learn for free in the Key Lessons channel of the StockedUp Discord. But besides that, Tom, we're not wasting any time, and we're jumping right into today's $1.1 million big money trade, and we are looking at ticker symbol YELP, Yelp. So I'm sure this is a company that many people have heard of before. It actually crushed it today as it popped up by just under 12%. Basically, the trader here loaded up on the 32 strike call options that expire pretty soon on November 21st of 2025. Again, this is a $1.15 million trade. Basically, today, Yelp had some pretty good analyst coverage. They had their price target increased from $37 a share all the way up to $45 a share, which is super nice, as well as an outperform rating. Basically, looking at Yelp, it has great momentum, good analyst coverage. These calls are already in the money. It's like kind of like a short to medium term expiration date, not looking bad at all, breaking past that $33 resistance level, and very interesting setup.
It really is. And like, as I looked at Yelp, they've been actually downtrending a lot over the past few weeks and couple of months. Like, if we actually go to their recent high, like let's just say around May of 2025, we can see that ultimately it's been downtrending quite a bit. But recently we started to see a bit of a shift. We saw a double bottom, and then now recently with this analyst coverage today, Yelp ended up coming up and actually re-breaking critical resistance right around $33. I thought that breaking this resistance and getting back out above the top of that bottom range was crucial, and it happened right as Yelp looked like it was about to actually break under that support as well. So it couldn't have come at a better time. I think that one of the biggest things with this Yelp play is going to be understanding that they have earnings coming up soon. Earnings is going to be coming up at the end of this month for Yelp, so just keep that in mind. Maybe the big money will look for that to even help, or maybe they'll close the position before then. Either way, though, I love the momentum from today, and if we continue up in the short term, like Yelp has continued in the past, we could see a pretty good pop out of this stock. And if we see a good continuation, this one could be a play that, we don't have to hold it for a few weeks or anything like that. It could be a play that only lasts a week or so if the price action gets hot enough here.
Yeah, so we shall see. Either way, let's keep a close eye on it. And if you are new to the channel, welcome, and consider obliterating that subscribe button. Every single day, we do hours of research to cover basically everything you need to know in the stock market, whether it be big money trades like this one, recent US-China trade updates, historical stats, important events, earnings, chart setup, SPY levels, and again, basically everything you need to know. If you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often, so definitely consider doing that. And Tom, let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Mata in the StockedUp Discord, who had a hell of a month. He made a bold move saying that he loaded up on some rare earth and critical mineral stocks last month, and it's definitely paying off for him. So huge shout out to you, Mata. Keep up the great work going forward, and maybe consider locking in some profits during this giant boom. Either way, huge shout out to you, and keep on rolling. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below to get in on the StockedUp trading floor. This will give you full access to our army of trading robots, daily big money plays. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, join our weekly live events, and access basically everything you can need for short-term trading. It should be a very exciting next couple of days and next couple of weeks, and honestly, the whole rest of the year with everything going on in the market. So thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.